Hi, I'd like to give you a quick tour of Nucleus. With NVIDIA Omniverse, it's one of the core components. There's many other videos and documentation on this site, so please take a look at those. Today, as I said, we'll focus on Nucleus. As you can see, there's many different things you can dig into, whether you want to learn about Omniverse Create or Audio to Face. I encourage you to. There's a lot to explore and it's really fun. When we talk about Nucleus, you think about collaboration and data. And you can collaborate both with multiple people or with yourself. In this scenario, I'm going to show you how Nucleus can help you collaborate amongst many tools. So here we have an example where I'm using Maya on the left and Omniverse Create on the right. And I'm leveraging Maya's ability and the fact that I've used it for so many years to be able to place stuff and move it around, change the model. But at the same time, I'm able to work within Omniverse Create on the right and change the shaders and the lighting and change how the scene looks. And I'm doing that by enabling the live mode that connects through Nucleus. And here I am changing the swimming pool ladder to make it taller and wider, but it's really easy to see it in the viewport with lighting. And it's actually much easier to work when I can see how it's going to react with the shading against the pool. And so I love being able to work with whatever tool is the fastest. In this case, I'm, like I said, working between Autodesk Maya tool and Create and going back and forth. And Nucleus allows us to do that by passing the differences and changes amongst the files. So in this case, you can see I'm moving the donut around and, obviously it was going into itself. I might want to change how the pans are looking or move these items around. And all while I'm doing that, I'm seeing live updates through Nucleus in the Omniverse Create app on the right. I can do multiple things, like in this case, I'm sculpting the cloth that's on the chair. I can switch the viewport, I can change lights, I can bounce back and forth. And the great thing is, even though I'm only working by myself, I'm able to collaborate amongst many different tools. And this is one of the great advantages of using Nucleus. So you can see here, changing the flower pot really allows me to see what it would look like with different materials in different lighting and really work between the two of them. Now, when you think about collaboration, obviously most people don't think about working with themselves and they think about working amongst teams. And this is where the power really comes into play. So Nucleus allows multiple teams from different places. So in this case, our example is from London and Los Angeles and Bangalore, all working together. And in this case that I'm showing you here, we have an example of someone using Unreal Engine on the top, Substance in the middle, and Maya on the bottom. And they're all working on this industrial loft type kitchen to work together. And so you're able to use whatever tool is the fastest and easiest for you and work with multiple people at the same time. And that's really cool. And this is why people get excited about using Omniverse and Nucleus. So beyond the collaboration bit, there's many other things that I'd like to show you in this highlight tour of the functionality. So it all starts with the idea of this digital archive, and that's USD and why Pixar, they built USD for themselves first, but then open sourced it for everybody else. And there's a number of different things that come together, including powerful layers, but also we build in different things like microservices and stuff. And I'll show you some examples of all of this. So here it is, a web page with Nucleus, and we're just going to jump to our local host in this case. So this is an example of running Workstation directly on my computer. And the first thing you want to do when you're sharing files is be able to admin and allow different users. So I can easily create a new user, or I can assign users passwords, etc. So this is a typical user management flow. You can obviously assign users to groups and a variety of things that you would expect. On top of that, we can then start adding those users to the permissions. So in this case, I'm giving Julie the read-write ability to look at the Octopus folder. And Nucleus handles multiple different file types. As I drag it up here, what it will do is it will actually run one of our microservices I mentioned. So it makes the thumbnails for us. And now Julie is able to see those textures immediately. And of course, you can put any file you want on Nucleus. So in this case, here's a Maya file, but it doesn't have to be a USD file. The other thing that comes along is something we call checkpoints. So checkpoints are basically different versions of your file, and I'll explain those in details. I'm also showing quickly that you can look at this in the navigator, and you can add your own tags to it. In fact, we've got services that will add tags to it for you if you like. And in this case, I can search for octopus and quickly find it, or shoe, or anything else that has a tag. And this becomes really quick and easy to find your files. So you can see here, there's a number of different powerful features, but one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit more in detail is checkpoints. So here's a chair scene that I've set up, and you can see I've got about 10 or 12 different checkpoints. So every time I save my scene, Nucleus is going to build a version for me, which we call checkpoints. And in this case, what I've done is I made a number of different ones. I've made a blue one and a white one, and I'm able to actually drag those different checkpoints into this local scene to then be able to have them all at the same time, so I can look at them from different angles, and maybe I can set up a review session with the art director to come by and try to figure out which of the chairs and which of my changes they like. So this is a really powerful way of working where you can iterate, do multiple options. You can see I made two different reds, one slightly more tomato and one slightly darker, some white and blue, and then have a review session and work and look at each one and decide maybe we like the steel color from one of the chairs and the actual chair color from another one. And then what I can do is I can go to my chair group and say, I like the white one. So I'm going to right click and say restore that checkpoint. And at the top, I now have a new version that is the white chair. And if I was to reopen this scene, what will happen is it will open up just the white chair. And this is great, but maybe the feedback was I wanted to change some of the chairs. So maybe the white was a little bit too white and I want to make it a bit more blue or a bit more yellow. And maybe the metal there is a bit too dark, so I want to make my metal look differently. Well, I can go into my different materials, and NVIDIA obviously ships with Omniverse hundreds of materials, so you can go through the metals and pick maybe something that's a bit more interesting. So maybe the feedback was I want to have a heat-treated metal, so I'm going to grab this one, assign the iron-pitted one, and then go within the materials and tweak the settings a little bit to make it a bit more rainbow. And as I do that, right now I'm working on checkpoint 13, which I had restored from the white one. But when I'm ready to save it, I can save it as a new checkpoint and give it a name. So I'm going to just change some settings here a little bit to give it a more interesting look. And then when I save it, I get this new version. So I'm going to say with options and I give it a name. So I'll say this is a white with heat-treated metal. Hit save, and I see that as my version, right? So this is fascinating, interesting, and it allows people to work on multiple versions, because what I can do now, let's say I'm in this sunroom setting and I want to leverage that change that we've just done in this scene. There's a few ways I can do it. I can hit reload layer, and that will reload the latest one, which is the white one, as opposed to where I had it red before. Or I can go through each of the individual checkpoints and pick them. So I can restore it as we just did and force the blue one to be at the top and reload it. Or within Create itself, I can actually say, no, I want to open up a specific version. So this allows teams to work in parallel where I can make more changes to this chair, and the people in the sunroom scene don't necessarily have to get the latest. And that's really powerful. So in this case, I've got the white chair, which is the latest, but maybe I want to pick the blue chair and look at it from different angles to see, do I like the blue chair or not? Maybe actually I like the red chair. So I can easily go to that checkpoint, pick a different one, and you can see the URL changes. So it has a little bit extra info to say, open up the checkpoint number 9 for this chair. So forever after, if the other department works on this chair, changes the shape, maybe makes it taller, skinnier, it doesn't matter, because this particular scene will always open up that checkpoint 9 until I tell it otherwise. So that's a really quick look at checkpoints. And as I said, there's a number of different features, as you've probably seen on the features and benefit page. So quickly, I want to talk about microservices. This is another great feature that Nucleus comes with. And one of the microservices is thumbnail generation. As you saw when we drag textures on, the textures immediately have thumbnails so you can see what they are. This other interesting example is something we call deep search. And this is really cool, where you can run a microservice that's actually going to add tags to your files. So in this example, we've got over 100,000 items on this particular server, and I can type in trees and it will go through, tag the trees, find them, and allow me to find them quickly. Well, that's great, but I'm able to do things like, say, large red tree, and it actually will understand what's in each of these pictures and figure out which of those assets is a large red tree. And I can use natural language, so I can say maybe I want to see a brown rusty barrel, and it will find what it thinks are brown rusty barrels, which is really cool. So in this case, it found some logs and some barrels, and it really helps me find things quickly of those 100,000 items. Or I can drag a picture. So I can actually drag a car in here, and it will find items that it thinks look like the picture. So here it found a bunch of red cars. Now that's super powerful. And if you don't think that's pretty cool, let me show you that use in real life when you start talking about large game assets.
Game development is an extremely complex process, with hundreds of thousands of assets made across dozens of teams. Together with Activision, we are exploring the ways Omniverse can help game developers build games faster. With Omniverse Deep Search, developers can search through vast asset libraries using natural language or image-based queries. These assets can then be placed in a fully interactive path-traced scene. Using Omniverse's advanced simulation and physics capabilities, designers can configure, adjust, and place physically accurate objects with just a few clicks, doing in seconds what was traditionally a time-consuming process.
So as you can see, this is extremely cool, super useful, and makes it very easy to say, hey, find me a white barrel or find me the tires, and let me focus on actually putting stuff in my scene and not actually searching through directories and stuff. So there's a number of microservices that Nucleus comes with. It's very powerful. You can write your own. There's a number of things that you can dig into in the documentation. And finally, that brings me to the documentation. I've just touched on a few of the different features, but if you go to the next button right below here, there's a features and benefits page that shows you a bunch of the features in more detail and leads you into the documentation so you can get deep into the technical details, as well as we will continue to add features, obviously, and we're cranking out a bunch of nice ones, and that page will constantly be up to date. So I encourage you to take a look through that, and if you have any questions, we'd like to hear them. Thanks for your time. Have a great time using NVIDIA Omniverse.